God, I've got to get my shit together at some point. Oh, I wanted to do something. I wanted to talk about. God, I need a beverage. I wanted to talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, specifically the MCU that is um, going on Netflix, the NMCU, because it's better than the rest of them. And I should explain that, and that's going to take a little while. So it's a whole video. The MCU is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Okay, just briefly go through this. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is an incredible entertainment cornerstone, I would argue. It's a series of these movies, but it's also tied into 2 TV shows on regular broadcast television. It's, goddamn, at this point, a shit ton of movies and a bunch of Netflix shows, which is the thing I want to talk about. But let's briefly talk about the more just in general, just background and why I like the NMCU so much. Let's talk about the MCU briefly. I've been hearing a lot of discussion about the MCU in the terms of, they're doing it properly. They're what's called a mega franchise, which is not just a series of movies, but rather a bunch of movies that can be watched almost interchangeably with one another, out of order, and a very successful one. One of the things that really impressed me about the mega franchise that is the MCU was that it was very effective in getting me to watch parts of it I didn't initially want to see. For example, I didn't really want to follow Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show on, is that ABC, I guess? ABC, I guess. I think it's ABC. Like, as kind of like, it'll just be a goofy, it won't even be X-Files. It'll be like, like the A-Team. Like, they're just going to go around on adventures. It's not going to be connected to anything. They'll mention other stuff, but it's like, who cares? Then I saw, gosh, I guess it was the second Thor movie, and I was like, God, this was great. I actually did like Thor. I don't think the Thor movies have been as good as the others, but it was enjoyable nonetheless, and it's kind of like, you leave the theater, and it's only a movie, even if they're really long, there's kind of that, wow, I wish I could have more of that somehow. I want more of this experience. And, I mean, that's kind of how a mega franchise works. It's like, you want more of this? Well, as it turns out, there is more of it. You just have to check it out. So it kind of, like, I saw the second Thor movie, Dark World, or whatever it was, and I was like, this is pretty good. I kind of want more of this. I want more of this. And which made me, maybe I want to see the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after all. But I didn't end up watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then I believe right after that was Winter Soldier, which was just still one of my favorites. I mean, out of all of them, I'd argue it's debatable. It's definitely one of the best 5. No questions asked. I'd argue it's debatably the best, depending on your criteria. But it's really, really, really quite good. I really like that one a lot. I think it's cemented the Marvel formula of, we're making a superhero film, but it's not really a superhero film. For example, the Thor movies were fantasy movies. They're full-on fantasy. It's a character from a Marvel comic, a comic book, but at the same time, there is actually a magic hammer that fires off lightning bolts and allows him to control the weather. There were giants, and there was a freaking ice dragon. It's a fantasy that just happens to have the window dressing of a superhero film. Ditto, Guardians of the Galaxy is like a space opera, a really good one. It's brilliant in terms. Guardians of the Galaxy is vying, in my mind, for that top position in the top 5 Marvel MCU movies. It's a space opera that happens to be based on superheroes and has some of the iconography. It's the least superhero-y of them all. Likewise, you could argue that going through them, the Captain America, the first one, is more of a historical drama. The Winter Soldier is more of a political thriller, but has the window dressing and the tone and themes of a superhero film. It's, I think the winning formula there has been, we're making another kind of movie, but it's the superhero genre applied to something else. So it's not a superhero genre movie so much as it's some other genre that happens to have superheroes in it, with exceptions. Avengers is definitely a superhero film, period. There's no other way to do that. Having just said that, it's kind of an apocalypse film, isn't it? It's an alien invasion one, the first one, and the second one is robot apocalypse, vis-a-vis Terminator or whatever. So I guess those two movies are kind of apocalypse movies. Very upbeat ones, in all fairness, but still, all of them are upbeat. I mean, even the downbeat ones are pretty uplifting. Anyway, that's the MCU. Winter Soldier made me want to see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I did watch it, and is exactly what I thought it would be to start out with. But then as you kind of go along, it goes from kind of a cheery, chipper guys in an adventure. They're in a plane, they're going on weird adventures that are kind of, sort of, not really set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, they are, but there's occasional call out to a supervillain here, or something that happened in one of the movies there, but by and large, not as much. But then later, things start getting really shitty for them. Like, they start, not even going to reveal any plot stuff, but they lose some of their stuff. Things start getting really bad for them, and the worse it gets, the better it gets. Like, the worse it gets for them, the better it gets for me. It was like I enjoyed it way more when things got super shitty. All right, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it was a neat show. It tends to vary a lot. Like, it's like there'll be a couple episodes I was like, why am I still watching this? And then kind of there's a good payoff. The end of each season has been a really good payoff. The mid-season finale has been a pretty good payoff in each case. So it's, yeah, they have some mediocre episodes, they have some mediocre plot lines, but by and large, it's pretty good stuff all around. It's a good enough show for broadcast television. I'm generally not a big fan of broadcast television, thus leading us into Netflix. Specifically the Netflix cinematic universe, which started with the Daredevil movie. I am not a fan of Daredevil, the character from the comic book. It's like this. There was this movie called The Crow, the original one, with the one Brandon Lee died filming, where at some point, because I'd heard the Daredevil thing, the man without fear, and I'm like, you're blind. That doesn't. I mean, it was a neat angle. Justice is blind. He's really a lawyer. Some shticky sort of stuff. That's cute, but it didn't really sell me. But then I saw this Crow movie, and at one point, the spoilers, I guess, for a movie from the 90s. Brandon Lee's character, the Crow, the character, Eric Draven, falls off a roof, but he's a revenant. He's a dead guy returned for vengeance, so he can't be killed. So he just jumps off a building, lands on his back, and gets up laughing. Just that hysteria, that sort of, bah, ha, 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 I can't be killed. Nah, 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 nah. It was great. It was like, wow, this is a man without fear. And how do you recreate that with a guy who's not indestructible? I don't know. So his byline never sold me. I saw the Ben Affleck movie. I really wasn't sold. It wasn't. I don't think it was that terrible, but it really wasn't great. It didn't break any new ground. It wasn't that interesting. Ben Affleck was fine in it. I mean, all things being equal, it had some very silly parts. It had some parts that were very poorly written, and it wasn't great. So it was particularly not great. But then we lead into the Netflix. Netflix starts making its own TV shows, House of Cards, quite a few others, but that's another topic for another day, perhaps. And they're really good. I mean, they're like cable good, like cable TV good. They're like cable TV budget. Man, I don't even know how to explain this. They were just the orders there. One of the things that I actually, walking back a little, that I wanted to espouse upon about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, something I didn't really touch on, was that I've often heard wow, Marvel did their mega franchise correctly. They planned this whole thing out, and that's how you do it. You slowly build up, blah, blah, blah. You do what Marvel's done. You make a few films with a few of the characters, you expand slowly. It's just the synergies there. And I'd argue that's wrong. I'd argue you could do it a different way, maybe even a completely different way. The thing that makes Marvel Cinematic Universe, the movies anyway, really good, isn't actually, not to say that the writing or directing or acting isn't good. They're excellent in many cases. In most cases. It's of all things, the management. Like they have, what is his name? Kevin Feige? Kevin Feige, or whatever. They have a guy in charge, like a guy specifically in charge, a guy who can say, okay, this director wants to do that, from this movie wants to do this, the writer from another movie wants to do this. Who wins? There's a guy who can say, you over there, you get your thing. Sorry, negotiate with me. Maybe you can get you something else. We'll cut you some. You want to do this sort of thing. And so in essence, a lot of the Josh Whedon complaints about I guess he did the one with Ultron, the Age of Ultron. I heard that he was kind of fighting with the studio to include certain scenes and not have other stuff, and it was kind of a compromise in places. I guess who he was really negotiating with was ultimately Kevin Feige. And the fact that they have someone who can just say yay or nay on any particular decision means that the entire stream of movies, the entire mega franchise, has a singular vision. That you can have someone go, this guy doesn't really fit as a director. This script, it's okay, but it needs to include elements so it'll fit into a larger picture, which can sometimes be a big constraint. Josh Whedon complained about that. He was like, this is really confining, having to include the scenes with Thor that really didn't make that much sense on their own. Thor just kind of disappears at one point, only to reappear later, and then that thing didn't make sense. He almost didn't get to include his scene from the farmhouse, which is a great scene. I'm glad that's in there. It's very important that it is in there. But I'd argue that the thing that makes the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, so great is its management. You just have this structure where one person is in charge, and they get their ducks in a row ahead of time because there's one person going, I want this to be like this. I'm going to get a director who can do this. Director, tell me your vision. Okay, that fits in. We'll try to do that. Give me your script. Okay, let's look at this script. Let's get someone else to do the script. What was it? Ant-Man had, they went through a series of directors until they got the one they got. Who the hell did they get? Oh, whatever. The one they finally settled with had a particular vision that went in line with the theater, and maybe the other guy, the last guy right before this, that was the big hullabaloo. What's his face got kicked off, or quit, or maybe it was kind of a mutual thing. They wanted to see other studios and directors. It happens. Anyway, they made those changes beforehand. I mean, you saw my video about Suicide Squad. It's clear that in that case, it's like, we got our vision, and then we wanted to we changed our mind after the fact. Marvel hasn't been doing that. It's just like, look, some of these films didn't turn out that great. I'd argue Iron Man 2 isn't very good. The Thor movies have been pretty okay for me. I know some people don't care for them at all. By and large, I love all the rest of the stuff, like to death. It's the rest of them, you know, shit. Yeah, give me Civil War and all that jazz. Winter Soldier, God, it was so good. Anyway, my point being, it's an organizational thing. With a lot of the Sony pictures or the Spider-Man movies, they've been committee made. There's no one person in charge, lots of people making different decisions, and look what you got. There's no one person appointed as the head of Spider-Man, the Spider-Man cinematic universe that they were trying to make, and they've given up on it. It's in the toilet. I heard that maybe they're going to do Sinister Six after all. I'm kind of doubting that, and I'm kind of I have no aspirations for that. Like, I have no hope that that's going to be like amazing. I'm all about supervillain movies, so it's not going to be the supervillain movie to be the breakthrough supervillain movie. I'm curious what will be. Bet you it's a Marvel movie, like Serpent Society or some shit. There's my prediction. It's going to be the breakthrough supervillain movie with the supervillains as the headliners. It'll be a Marvel movie. I don't know, Serpent Society. Maybe not. I'm trying to think who the hell else they have. Anyway, I'm still waffling and not talking about the thing I wanted to talk about, but I badly need a drink, and my cat is just not shutting up about being outside of this room. So, to be continued. Alright, NMCU. You betcha. Alright, the MNCU. So Netflix makes a bunch of shows, proving that they can hold their own with cable, which also makes its own shows, which are amazing. Right now, HBO is making Game of Thrones, and holy fucking crap, that show is amazing. So they announce this Daredevil, and I'm like, man, I'd heard a rumor that, what is his name? Frank Miller? Someone wanted to do an extremely gritty, set in the 1970s style, a version of Daredevil, and I'm like, ooh, that sounds interesting to me. That sounds very interesting. Because something like that is more interesting to me than the Ben Affleck Daredevil film and Elektra Assassin, which was really terribly not good. I mean, that added silliness to crappiness. Or maybe they got their crappiness into silliness. I don't know. It was not a great taste that tasted great together. It was quite terrible. And incomprehensibly, it's like, why? Oh, just terrible decisions. All abound. But, I'm getting off base. Why did like a gritty Daredevil interest me when the Ben Affleck one did not? And I'd argue that's, once again, for the very reason that I explained, for one of the reasons I explained that the MCU has been so good. It's never been, this is just a superhero film. Because it seems like the genre, like the superhero film is a genre. It feels like it. Like it should be. The original Superman, Christopher Reeve, 1980, 79, 81, whenever the hell that came out, 1980, the Donner Superman. That was full-on a superhero film. It wasn't anything else. It wasn't another genre of film that also happened to have superheroes in it. But I think a pure superhero film is something difficult to do. Difficult to do really well. I guess maybe we became more cynical. Maybe I became more cynical. And it's like, just like, oh, this is just silliness. And it's too self-aware. The worst of the post original 1980, freaking out, 4, 6, whenever the Batman came out with Michael Keaton. That movie was great. For the time, it was amazing. And once again, that was a superhero film, nothing else. Ditto the second one. The ones that came after it were just progressively worse because it was too much of this wink and nudge, like, hey, look how stupid superhero movies are, says guys who make superhero movies. It's like the filmmakers couldn't get over how ridiculous the premise was, so kept hammering over how absurd it was, by just filling them with absurdities till it boiled over with what was the last one? Batman and Robin, the one with Mr. Freeze, quippy Arnold Schwarzenegger. Terrible fucking movie. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I've never seen all of it. I've only seen bits of it. And they're so it's like I'm could not cringe more than watching these little clips. I cannot imagine watching them in a sequence. Like, dear God. Anyway, I'm kind of getting away from it. A grungy Daredevil would be interesting because then, once again, that's something else that just happens to have a superhero in it. I like the idea of realistic superheroes, and I guess the one way to do that, to do it, is actually say, okay, this is a different kind of film, and we're going to slowly insert the superhero into it, and that'll make it just seem all that more realistic, because it's very clearly other stuff are going on. It's a different... The film has its own tone without trying to put the superhero necessarily as the only thing carrying the film. I mean, for example, all the stuff that's going on in, picking one at random, Winter Soldier, because I like that one the most. I've declared that to be one of the best, if not the best. Oh God, Guardians of the Galaxy is so close. But let's talk about the Winter Soldier. Remove Captain America from it. Remove the blatantly superhero films, and that's still a film. You'd have to have someone else take part of the conspiracy to stop the bad guys sort of thing going on, but there's still a whole film there. If you removed them, there'd be a hole, but not such a glaring hole it wouldn't make the whole film would fall apart. Do that with the Dawn of Superman, the first Superman film, the Christopher Reeve Superman film. Remove Superman, and the damn thing doesn't make any goddamn sense at all. And that's, I guess, one way to enforce that realistic feel is to make a complete is to never... Wow, this sounds so crazy. To never lose sight of making a complete film regardless of who the main character is. You know, make a complete film independent. The main character doesn't have to hold every single other character's hand, doesn't have to be involved in every single conversation, doesn't have to be present at every single event. I mean, it's, you know, we need some scenes without him, so we have a world for him or her to be in. There were some superheroine movies. They were terrible, but they existed. Supergirl was a movie. Terrible, incomprehensible film that was terrible. But it was a thing that happened, unfortunately. My point is, going from there, like, I kind of got... Actually, let's pause for just a second. Let's